Hello everyone. Yeah. As I mentioned in my recent video where I discussed and watched every single Taylor Swift music video, I've been reading the Hunger Games books. Yeah, actually I finished all of them between the time that I was editing the last video and now. Actually, I think I finished Sunrise on the Reaping 2 weeks ago now, and I'm already like 5 books past it. I don't know what's gotten into me. I'm reading avidly. But the Hunger Games, yes, it's been my first experience with these books recently, and what a treat they are. I've been a massive fan of the movies for a really long time, and so actually getting to sit down and read them now as an adult, you know, I feel like I'm having a really special experience. It got the creative juices flowing a little bit, and it made me think about Taylor Swift's albums, of course, because when am I not thinking about Taylor Swift, right? You know, I thought, why not combine my two loves and talk to you about which Taylor Swift albums I think were written for X Hunger Games character. Are you with me? Are you working with me? Yeah. We're going to be looking at the 11 Taylor Swift albums, which character I think which album was written for. So, of course, there's more than 11 characters in the Hunger Games, but I'm going to be picking from the kind of main character base so that we're kind of keeping a little bit secret of which album goes with who. I'm going to be doing the order of each of the albums in the order that the characters are listed on Wikipedia. From Katniss to whoever's last, that's the order that we're going in. Let's just say I have spent so long working on this and I'm so excited to actually be talking about it. I have put my soul into this because truly the Hunger Games has really touched me in a way that I wasn't anticipating, so I really hope that you all like this. So let's start off with our girl on fire, Katniss Everdeen. So for Katniss, there are a lot of albums that I think Taylor Swift could have written for her, but I think to me, the most obvious one is Evermore. Beyond the clear visual kind of elements that align with both Taylor on the cover of Evermore and Katniss with that signature braid, there is an undercurrent of themes in the lyrics that really sing to Katniss's story. There's a lot of grief, there's a weariness, an emotional endurance throughout the lyrics, and I really think that speaks to Katniss's character. So what are some of the things that we know about Katniss throughout the series that we might be able to pick from that speak to Evermore? Katniss loses her father in a mine accident. Tragic. I don't know why I'm smiling. Okay, 5-second cat break to recover. Katniss loses her father in a mine accident when she's quite young. And it's something that she is constantly grappling with throughout the series. It's not something that just kind of happens and then something bigger happens to her and that kind of takes over in her mind. Her dad passing away is a really big part of the story. And one thing that she does throughout the series is hold on to the mementos associated with him. You know, she's got her father's bow that she uses throughout the series, his jacket, his bags, his hunting bags. And of course she learned how to hunt and things from her dad, so whenever she's hunting, her dad's at the forefront of her mind. What is one of the most famous Evermore songs? Marjorie. Marjorie really talks about just hanging on to the memory and really letting them still live within you, live within the things that you have. Scraps of Marjorie that Taylor keeps close to her, much like scraps of Burdock that Katniss keeps close to her, just to feel like they're still living within the character. And of course, you know, Katniss deals with a lot more grief than just her dad. This is going to be spoiler heavy, of course, so I'll keep it, you know, largely brief, but hey, if you haven't read The Hunger Games or watched the movies by now, why'd you click on this video? Obviously, Katniss deals with a lot of grief throughout the books. She grapples with feeling responsible for Rue's death in the first games. And then, of course, there's a bunch of deaths that she feels personally responsible for, not only in her own games, but in the Quarter Quell, the 75th Hunger Games. And, you know, beyond, anyone who is associated with the kind of rebel movement that she has found herself a part of. When she goes back to 12 and it's been completely decimated because of her acts in the rebellion, that's the punishment, is that her home is destroyed effectively. Dealing with those feelings of guilt and regret are a huge part of what makes Katniss Katniss. Following on from the kind of death element of Katniss's character and character arc, certainly. Katniss has many faces throughout the series. She's one half of the Lovers, Peeta and Katniss the Lovers. They're marketing in how they stay alive and defy the Capitol. She's also the Mockingjay, a responsibility that has been thrust upon her that she maybe wouldn't have chosen for herself. She never once gets to really be herself in her main portion of the storyline. Even before she volunteers, she isn't really playing herself either. She is parentified in her youth after her dad dies because her mum just kind of abandons her and Prim into herself. Obviously, she's still there. Once the dust has settled, after the events of Mockingjay, she finally has that chance to rest, finally has that chance to rediscover herself and rediscover things that she wanted but maybe didn't think were ever going to happen for her. And that's something that Taylor really discusses in Evermore, that kind of loss of self, the loss of respect for yourself. She discusses having an anchor that stops her from fully going off the deep end. And for Katniss, that anchor is Peeta. Throughout most of the series, even when they're butting heads, Katniss has Peeta at the forefront of her mind. She's always thinking about making sure that he's protected, because in the beginning she kind of sees him more as like a little perfect duckling. He would never hurt anyone, and so she wants to protect him because he's the one that he should win the Hunger Games, not her. And then obviously they've grown close to one another and she wants to protect him in that way, and maybe she's struggling with the fact that she has feelings with him but she doesn't really know yet. And then by the end she really wants to protect him because she feels responsible for why he was punished in the Capitol, and so on and so on. Her purpose is guided largely by Peeta, someone who never should have been wrapped up in this nonsense. And that is certainly a theme that Taylor plays with a lot on Evermore. The idea that you're roping someone into something. And finally, the last touch point that I want to discuss on Evermore is the element of resilience that you can see within the album. I'd say the top character trait that people most associate with Katniss is her resilience. Beyond the games themselves, she is constantly being put into situations where she needs to just kind of work it out, and that's certainly something that is explored on Evermore quite a bit. You can't kick her down for long. She's wily, she's tenacious, and Evermore is just like brimming with those kind of sentiments on the album. But none really encapsulate that better than Long Story Short. Experiencing full-blown character assassination, Taylor discusses how she is just kicked and kicked and kicked down, making wrong decisions because she feels like she needs to make a decision to try and make up for the things that are perceived wrong or the ways that people have been unfairly characterizing her. And despite it all, she came out of it alive. And so the lyric that I would say encapsulates Katniss's character the best to me is, "Long story short, I survived." Next up we have Peeta Mellark. Peeta Mellark, the love of my life, truly. I remember when I was just watching the movies, only having experienced the Hunger Games through the movies, I thought Peeta was cute and everything, but I don't know, short and blonde, that's a hard sell. I love Josh Hutcherson so much, but yeah, I was like, Peeta? I don't know about that. In terms of the love triangle, I was always team Peeta, but like in general, he was like not my favorite. But in the books, somebody protect that little guy. I love him so much. Every moment of the whole series, I was just like, can somebody please be thinking about Peeta? And the album that I think Taylor Swift wrote for Peeta Mellark is Fearless. Peeta truly embodies the fearless love. Like, he is loyal, he's idealistic, he is just a little ball of golden light. Speak ill of Peeta Mellark or Fearless and you've got a storm coming. The storm in my best dress, Fearless. Stupid. I think the song that I first think about from Fearless that encapsulates Peeta is You Belong With Me. I think that's gonna be so obvious and everyone's gonna be like, okay. But like, from the beginning of what we know about Peeta, of course, the books are in Katniss's point of view, so there's a lot of things that we don't necessarily get because we only get them from her perspective. But as far as we know, Peeta has been in love with Katniss since they were kids. And as soon as they saw each other at school, Peeta was like, I want that. Katniss wasn't really thinking about him for a lot of it. She brings up one of the first times that they meet is when, you know, she's under the tree and he throws her bread that he was meant to be giving to the pigs because it was not good enough to sell. And that's really when she notices him, but he's noticed her for a long time. And he has seen Katniss be, you know, close with Gale for a lot of their relationship, a lot of their life. And he's kind of sitting on the sidelines, like waiting for his turn, just like Taylor in You Belong With Me. Something that surprised me about reading the books is that in the movies, it looks just kind of like Peeta is playing the character of someone who loves Katniss and he, you know, slowly falls for her, kind of like how Katniss does in the Hunger Games. It's an act, but then she starts actually having feelings for him and it feels genuine, even though she's not sure. Whereas for Peeta, it's always been genuine. There was never a concept where he was trying to appeal to people that he loved her. The whole, yeah, is there anyone in your life? Yeah, unfortunately she came to the games with me. That was all real. And that's something I didn't know until I read the book, which is just, it's so cute. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. But yeah, I found that particularly heartbreaking to read because it's so sad to me. He always loved her and he, like, she just didn't know and she kind of treated him like shit, but he, you know, I just need good things to happen for my little butter boy. And much like the resolution of You Belong With Me, eventually Katniss does see Peeta and does fall for him, and eventually they are together. They finally see how much they need each other, you know, that's cinema. In Mockingjay, we see the kind of resolution of what's happened after the 75th Hunger Games. While the rebels were able to take Katniss, Finnick, they didn't pick up Peeta and Johanna. The Capitol reshapes Peeta's memories, right? We all know this. He becomes kind of, well, he's brainwashed, but he also becomes terrified of Katniss when he eventually comes back to them in District 13. In his terror for Katniss, he also doesn't know what's real and what's fake. Once he starts to finally trust the people that he's with, he doesn't know what has been fed to him through the Capitol, which, you know, again, particularly heartbreaking for my boy. I don't want to reduce Peeta down to just being Katniss's partner, but unfortunately, because we only have Peeta from this perspective, that's really where my inspiration for Fearless comes from. So, like, please bear with me on that. But I feel like the whole him not knowing where they stand, having to confirm with Katniss pretty much every part of their relationship until they are finally comfortable with each other feels very Forever and Always coded to me. The questioning, the insecurity, it's oozing with betrayal. You can really see how Forever and Always is so Peeta after the Capitol coded. Thank goodness he gets a really good, beautiful story in the end. Obviously, all of the beautiful things happen to him when they're back in 12. I just need a little bit more. Every little tidbit that we've gotten extra of them post the games, like the epilogue of Mockingjay and then the epilogue of Sunrise on the Reaping, I'm eating. That's me enjoying little bits and pieces of my little butter boy. I love him so much, my little piece of bread. Anyway, the lyrics that I think encapsulate Peeta Mellark, this love is difficult, but it's real. Next up, we have an unfortunate character. It's unfortunate just because of how I personally treat this character, and that is Gale Hawthorne. I have beef with you, Gale Hawthorne. I'm being unfair. Listen, it's no secret I don't have any love for this character, really. I have a bias here, okay? Like I said before, I was never Team Gale. It was always Team Peeta. It's never the other person in the triangle. It's always the OG. You'll never catch me liking the other person ever, because first of all, they never end up together. And it's always just like a lust thing. It's never love. Peeta is the love. Okay, anyway, I'm getting off track. I promise I'm going to try and say nice things about Gale because there are redeeming qualities about Gale. It's just unfortunate that throughout the series, not only do I not like him for Katniss, but I don't like what he eventually does in this whole story. So it's unfortunate that that's the part of what we see of his life, you know? Now, I don't want to make it seem like the album that I'm associating with Gale is also Womp Womp. I love the album that I'm associating with Gale, actually, and it kind of hurts that I'm giving it to him, but it makes the most sense to me. And that is Red. Yeah, of course, the passionate character, the kind of messy character, the one that is just wrestling with his own emotions. Yeah, that's red-coded. I feel like Gale's defining features. He loves Katniss, duh. He is the sole provider for a pretty large family. He has to provide for all of his siblings as well as his mother. After his father passes away, I believe his father passes away the same mine accident that Katniss's dad passes away in. So that's really where they connected. Which means that also, tragically, he has been taking the tesserae? I don't remember how to pronounce it. The little slip that gets you the grain and the oil and all that so that you can cook and whatever. And it also puts an extra name in the reaping. So that is really tragic to me and is like I said, a defining character trait to him. 3, we largely know Gale through kind of his alliance with rebellious thought. I'm not going to say necessarily the rebellion, but later the rebellion, obviously, but rebellious thought. He is the one that introduces Katniss to the concept, really, of running away. He is the one that is constantly actually saying something about the things that go wrong. He is the one that is putting himself in harm's way when people are overstepping their authority. He is kind of, the epitome of rebellion, certainly in District 12. So I really feel like State of Grace is a really good starting point for, his worldview, that love and rebellion, both intense and all-consuming fights for him that ultimately require sacrifice. So with Gale's love for Katniss, ultimately, well, this is so sad, but like, I can't believe I'm actually entertaining the thought of Katniss and Gale together. But it's sad to me that, he has to sacrifice, obviously, his feelings for Katniss when she goes into the games. He has to pretend later on when she comes back that they're cousins so that they can be close to one another, which obviously means that they can't outwardly show any affection to each other because y'all are cousins. Disgusting. He approaches all of this with a fire and a ferocity, and ultimately what pushes Katniss away is that passion, that fire. At the end of the books, when she is discussing getting closer to Peeta, she kind of reconciles that her and Gale are too similar for them to ever have been anything serious, because she needs someone who is going to kind of be the light to her intensity. Peeta is the light and happy and positive one, and she is the harsh, more realistic one and is, harsh, really harsh, and he's light and beautiful. Gale is also harsh and comes across really passionately, which obviously when there's so much passion and then so much drama, it's just not gonna end well, okay? I've lived enough years in my life to know that that's certainly correct. This song's sweeping kind of anthemic tone also, to me, aligns with Gale's kind of trying to push for things to happen, trying to rally people together, the rally cry to get these people moving, get these movers and shakers getting in District 13 and actually doing something. The scenes where Katniss finally accepts that her and Gale are never gonna happen is in the end of Mockingjay, when there are people storming Snow's palace. Medics are all sent in to help when bombs go off. Medics come in, including Prim, and then more drones come down and bomb the medics that all came in, which includes Prim, obviously, killing Prim. And throughout Mockingjay, Gale has been learning with Beetee ammunition, how to work with bombs, how to program things. And because Gale can never really for sure say that he had nothing to do with those bombs going off, Katniss can just literally never trust him, because she can never work out whether or not he had a hand in that. She doesn't know if his passion blinded him to the consequences of his actions. And so this feels so stupid, but I feel like the song that really fits with that is I Knew You Were Trouble. And I think specifically in the music video, that intro part that I hate really fits with Katniss in this moment. I Knew You Were Trouble isn't villainizing Gale necessarily. It's about how someone you love and trust can still ultimately be bad for you. Someone who can misuse your trust, especially when your sense of right and wrong doesn't really align in the same way. Certainly over Mockingjay, you can kind of see where Katniss and Gale's ideals kind of start to separate, and you can really see that they're just butting heads a lot. Gale became trouble, not because he is trouble, but because how far will he go? And Katniss doesn't know where his limit is. He became trouble. So much trouble that her sister died. So, do you know what I mean? The lyrics that I think encapsulate Gale Hawthorne to me are, maybe we got lost in translation and maybe I asked for too much. Yeah. Now comes one that I am scared to talk about because this one is close to my heart now. I'll be honest, when I paired this together initially, I wasn't confident about this pairing. Since I have done some thinking, this really makes sense to me. So, next character that we're talking about is Haymitch Abernathy, my boy, yes. I feel so close to Haymitch now after reading Sunrise on the Reaping. That truly was a fantastic book. If anyone wants to know my ranking of the books, it's Catching Fire, The Hunger Games, Sunrise on the Reaping, The Mockingjay, and The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. No disrespect to The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, it's just not as good as the rest of them, but it's still good. They're all good books. But anyway, the album that goes with Haymitch is The Tortured Poet's Apartment. Okay, in the understanding Haymitch in the movies, I liked him because he's kind of the comic relief. He certainly also is in the books to a degree, but understanding everything that he went through better, having now read the books, having now read Sunrise on the Reaping, oh my god, what that poor boy went through. Of course he's a drunk now. Oh my god. If you haven't read Sunrise on the Reaping, this book has been out for a month now. If you do not want to hear about spoilers, that's first of all extremely fair enough. There are timestamps, of course, at the bottom of this video, just like every video. So if you would like to skip this part so that you do not hear spoilers, please do so. I would hate to spoil the book for you and have you not experienced it in the way that I got to experience it. So I think if you're well acquainted with Haymitch since Sunrise on the Reaping, you're gonna understand the connection to the Tortured Poets Department pretty well. Other than, obviously, Haymitch didn't have a relationship like Taylor and Maddie Healy in terms of Haymitch and Lenore Dove. I want you to think about the Maddie Healy being Snow or the Capitol. The oppression is what I want us to think about and not necessarily a romantic person. So I think that it becomes very understandable at that point. I really feel through the trauma, Taylor wrote The Tortured Poets Department for Haymitch. A big part of Sunrise on the Reaping that surprised me, actually the connections that Haymitch had to the people of District 12 before his games. It really stood out to me, the fact that Burdock and Astrid, who are Katniss's parents, were his close friends, among others, of course. But, Burdock especially was kind of his best friend. And having read Catching Fire, Hunger Games, having watched the movies, having Haymitch never bring up that he was friends with Burdock, that surprised the shit out of me. And it made me very confused. And I was like, it's kind of a retcon to name drop Burdock as his friend and then not have him ever be like, I'm, hey, your dad was my best bud. Or, hey, why did they not know each other growing up? It completely makes sense at the end of the book why he doesn't want to have anything to do with those people, because obviously he needs to put up a wall so that he doesn't let anyone else die because of him. So much death happens to the people that he loves as punishment for the things that he does in his games that he can't even fathom having these other people that he loves die, because that's a way that Snow can control him, or the Capitol can control him. So to me, the song that I think really encapsulates this is So Long London. And I want everyone, like I said, to think about the London as the district and kind of his family and the Covey, or his life even before the games. He can now no longer enjoy his life because now he has just constant reminders of the consequences of his actions. And I'm not saying that his actions were wrong at all, but now he has to protect himself. Now after he's been reaped, did everything that he did to win his games, he's got a target on his back forever now. So he has to be alone. I stopped CPR. After all, it's no use. We can see that Haymitch is giving up on those close connections, becoming a lonely drunkard that we know him in the kind of main series. If he cared for anyone, they could use that against him. And you say I abandoned the ship, but I was going down with it. This I see as a reference to him being the rascal in the games. If you remember back to the book, he says he's going to be part of the newcomers. He professes that he is connecting all of them, and per Beatty's son wants everyone to be connected as a kind of fuck you to the careers. So having the newcomers in is rebellious, even if not overtly. And then because Haymitch has to do this whole rebel plan of, you know, blowing up the water tank, he has to separate himself from the group and he has to say, I'm going to go on my own. I'm a loner now. I'm going to be a rascal and I'm going to win for myself. But we all know that he's doing the rebel plot and he just doesn't want anyone else killed. And honestly, like I could do a whole essay, I feel like, on So Long London and Haymitch, because there are so many lines that I feel like really encapsulate that book specifically of his story. So he didn't abandon the ship. He was literally going down with it. He was going down with the games. He was going to stop the games and likely kill himself or get himself killed. So he never was abandoning. It was all for them. So sad. And another song that I really think resonates with Haymitch's character is the manuscript, which I feel is where we're at in the most recent up-to-date part of the plot. So the epilogue of Sunrise on the Reaping, which I think is either assumed that it's right before Katniss's epilogue or it's just after. I feel like it's not very far away from the epilogue of the original series. But the manuscript to me is like unearthing his pain from the games and the rebel plot while enduring Katniss's. Him watching Katniss go through all of this rebel plot is obviously bringing up feelings for him, bringing up what he did, how far he went but didn't quite make it far enough. There's a lot that he needs to unpack with all of those feelings, and that I really think matches the vibe of the manuscript, which is of course written about Taylor re-releasing Red and talking about the relationships certainly all too well that she sings about and kind of really delving back into those feelings again. So I feel like that really connects the manuscript and Haymitch, certainly. Looking backwards might be the only way to move forward. Like, yeah, I'm ripping my heart out. Like, stop it. Guys, using what he knows, his connections, his experiences to assist Katniss. Guys. And now that he's past all of it, he gets to have his kind of closest version to a happy ending. We see him at the end of the book. He is on the porch, imagining what him and Lenore would be doing now if she was here. He can finally put the story of the games to rest. He's fulfilled his promise to Lenore. And now he's done. And I'm gonna cry. So the lyrics to me that encapsulate Haymitch Abernathy are, I'm just mad as hell because I loved this place. So next up we have Snow, and what album? Reputation. No character makes me sicker to my stomach than Coriolanus Snow, let me tell you. To have had to endure being in the mind of a man, one of my least favorite things. To experience the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Suzanne, I fear we're fighting. Don't get me wrong, it's a good book, but I just hate Snow so much. I think the most obvious song parallel is I Did Something Bad. This song could really relate to a plethora of story beats, but I think the story beat that really resonates with me throughout all of Ballad is ratting out his best friend and brother, Sejanus Plinth. That is certainly my favorite part of the book. And it is certainly the most gut-wrenching. He just wants to go back to life. He just wants people to be happy and safe. He's so cute, I love him. So Snow, why did you get him killed? If a man talks shit, then I owe him nothing. I don't regret it one bit because he had it coming is truly what Snow thinks about that situation. Throughout the whole book, he is rationalizing his decisions. As insane as a lot of them are, he's always like, well, yeah, Of course I would do that, because if I don't do that, I'm never going to get back to my whole life being in the capital. So from what we know of Snow from Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, his family were an affluent family before the war. Effectively, all of his money went down the toilet. And of course, they also lost both their parents in the war. And so the Snows are masquerading as affluent family still, but they're clearly no longer that way anymore, and they're kind of just scrambling and getting things together. So it's interesting to me that Snow understands the plight of the districts in some capacity, having been poor, having felt the ridiculousness of the capital, and yet he wants it so badly that he is willing to pretend that there's no issue with that. It's crazy to me. And so because his main goal throughout the whole story is to restore his wealth, to restore his family's place in society, that is his main driver for all of his decisions. Certainly through his games that he's a mentor for, and then after when he is working in District 12. Sejanus, being a effectively district born and effectively a rebel, is a huge issue for Snow, because despite how he has some kind of affection towards Sejanus, even though throughout his inner thoughts he doesn't like him, ultimately he is standing in the way of his ultimate goal. So of course he justifies to himself ratting out his friend, recording his friend saying what the rebel plot is, and then sending it to Dr. Gale and making sure that he's on the hanging tree. So it makes it even more insane to me that in a way he's almost rewarded for these actions at the end of the book because Sejanus is no longer alive, the Plinths like Snow, and he is kind of the last link to their son. They adopt Snow, restore his wealth because they're extremely wealthy, and allow him to get into university, which then leads him on to obviously becoming the president of the capital and Panem. Thank you. So it's such a disservice to Sejanus, it's such a disservice to justice that he gets there. So I really feel like I Did Something Bad is an extremely good tie-in there for that whole concept. But of course, like I said, it matches a lot of things that he does throughout the whole book. Another song that I feel perfectly fits the lovesick or maybe obsessed arc of Snow's life with Lucy Gray is Don't Blame Me. I feel like this really fits. From the moment that they meet, he is weaving invisible threads together of not only she has to be in love with me, but of course she's in love with me and I deserve her. She's my property. It's not normal. It's not like oh my god, she's so beautiful. What am I gonna do with myself? She's from the district. Instead, it's not that she's from the district, it's she's Covey, which means that she's not of the district, which means that she's pretty much capital born. Of course, it's the same thing. So justifies his feelings that he has for her. And then anytime that she shows any kind of thanks for anything that he does, it interprets every conversation yeah, we're kind of in love. He is in a position of power. She needs him to win. Of course, she is going to be nice to him, which he doesn't understand, because she's going to get something out of it. So eventually she does actually have feelings for him, but certainly not because he deserves it. It's really giving Don't Blame Me coded. Don't blame me, love me crazy if it doesn't, you ain't doing it right. He heard that and went, literally. Literally, that's true. For you, I would cross the line. I would waste my time. I would lose my mind. That is Coriolanus Snow. He will fantasize over Lucy's free-spiritedness. He loves that about her. He loves the kind of manic pixie dream girl about her. And then once, of course, Coriolanus betrays Sejanus and covers up his lie to Lucy. She obviously, once she works it out that he's been responsible for his death and she runs away, he kind of loses his mind and turbo modes into depravity. It's just... I hate him so much. I hate him so much. Lord save me, my drug is my baby. I'll be using for the rest of my life. Really, truly, Don't Blame Me is Snow's song. That is Snow's song. Throughout Sunrise on the Reaping and the Hunger Games, the kind of memories, the imprints that Lucy left on his life are ever present. He makes people pay for the things that Lucy Gray did to him. Intel. He recognizes that Lenore Dove is a Covey and punishes Haymitch for her being Covey because Lucy Gray betrayed me. Oy. And of course, because Katniss's name, poor thing, is named after the thing that Lucy Gray left to go find. And then she ran away. You know, Snow obviously is unfortunately reminded of Lucy Gray every time he hears Katniss's name. He is constantly reminded of the thing that got away. He'll always be haunted by Lucy Gray. And I think the lyrics to me that truly encapsulate Coriolanus Snow are, the world moves on another day, another drama, but not for me, all I think about is karma. I hate being in the mind of a man, never let me be there again. Thank you so much. Our next character that we're going to be talking about is Primrose Everdeen, our first District 12 tribute that we encounter. Obviously, Katniss puts her hand up to be tribute in place of her sister, and the album that I think is written for Primrose Everdeen, beloved character, is of course Lover. Yeah. Lover is such a special album. It is just wrapped in golden light, and I really feel like Prim is that kind of same way. She is just a beacon of hope and of joy and of fear as well. There's multitudes to our girl Prim. The first song that I'd like to talk about in relation to Prim is Lover, but I want to recontextualize it into a sisterly love instead of a romantic love. Can I go where you go? Can we always be this close forever and ever? For a lot of the main series, Katniss's only family is Prim. When her dad passes away, you know, Katniss and Prim only really have each other because her mum is immobilized by grief. Been there. Hey, been there. But of course, you know, the children become parentified and they have to look after themselves. What also happens is they get extremely close. They were already close before, but now, kind of by necessity, they grow even closer. And if you have ever been in a situation where you were neglected by your parents, or you go through some kind of abuse maybe by your parents, it's very common for siblings to grow close in that. Hey, not to get too personal, but my brother and I are extremely close because of some of the things that we experienced in our life. And so I really identify with Katniss and Prim because, like I said, they had to become adults very young, and they also deeply care about their siblings. Much like Katniss for Prim, I am deeply, deeply defensive of my brother. I would do anything for them, and I'll always be in their corner. It is an infallible familial love. A lot of the Lover album kind of discusses that sort of love as well. And Lover, the album, I've discussed a lot on this channel, and I always mention that it kind of comes across as insecure. Like, outwardly, I would say Lover looks like an album that is very happy, certainly coming from Reputation as well. It's kind of like a thank you to Jo Alwyn for sticking with me. That's kind of how she feels. Like, Jo was her longest relationship, and after everything that she's gone through, she's finally happy and in love, and she deserves it. But, you know, if you actually go down into the lyrics, you can really see that there is an anxiety, and there is not a lack of trust, but just like an insecurity about the love, not because of Jo, but because she doesn't know if she can trust it, because she hasn't really been given any reason to trust love up until this point. And so to recontextualize it for Prim and Katniss, from Katniss putting herself volunteering as tribute, Prim is now insecure of their life. Insecure that Katniss will be there because she might die, not because Katniss wouldn't be there because their bond isn't strong. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's an insecurity that, like, maybe I'm not going to see my sister again. Can I go where you go? Because I want to make sure that I'm there with you. I don't want to have a moment without you. I love you. Recontextualizing the song Lover in that way, ooh, it really works with Katniss and Prim. Ooh. Another song that I'm gonna hurt myself with for Prim is The Archer. I never grew up. It's getting so old. So obviously, you know, spoilers, Prim dies in The Mockingjay. So she literally never gets to grow old. But she also never gets the chance to grow up properly, because when she's a child and both of her parents are effectively unable to parent her, she doesn't get to grow up. She's forced to become an adult. So she never really gets to be a child and never really gets to be an adult properly in her whole life, which is really a terrible thing that I have come to discover. She is kind of stuck in limbo throughout the whole story, losing Katniss in some capacity, losing that thing that keeps her stable, then also becoming a medic and losing the chance to be herself, being forced into this role that even though she is interested in and obviously wants, and it also gives her a chance to be close to her mum, you know, maybe she wouldn't have picked it for herself if she hadn't been forced to, in a sense. And so like she's constantly just having to play the adult again and again and again and never getting to grow up. And it's getting so old. Who could ever leave me, darling? But who could stay? And I want to talk about that as well, not as like romantically, but it's also with Katniss. Tragically about Prim, no one would choose to leave her. Of course, no one would choose to leave her, but no one stays as well. Oh, it really just hurts me so much. Everyone would fight for her. Everyone would fight for her, but somehow, from obligation or whatever, she's alone. Her mother didn't choose to abandon her, but she became mentally incapable of choosing her. Katniss volunteered for her and then has to then abandon Prim, just from trying to save her life. Gale doesn't choose to abandon her when he's looking after her in Katniss's place, but because of duty, when they move to District 13, he's not able to be there for Prim. If I wanted to drive the knife further, I'd spend some time talking about how soon you'll get better relates to Prim and Katniss' relationship with their mum, but I'm not going to do that to you, and I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm really... But that's definitely another song that I really feel like, you know, it relates to Prim in some way. So I'm going to spare you this moment now. So the lyrics that I think encapsulate Primrose Everdeen are, and all of my heroes die all alone. Help me hold on to you. Okay, I gotta go. The next character we're going to be chatting about is Miss Effie Trinket, my beloved, my sweet. We learned a little bit more about her in Sunrise on the Reaping, what a treat. The album that I think that Taylor Swift wrote for Effie Trinket is Speak Now. Effie goes through such an interesting arc, and certainly a more interesting arc in the movies. Effie is the one character that I think that the movies showed better because they made us love her more. Like, she kind of is a little bit one note in some capacity. She definitely grows throughout the books, but in the movies, they really give her character progression, which I really, really like. I think for Effie and Taylor musically, they have kind of a lot in common, where in Speak Now, Taylor is shedding a image of herself. She has been this perfect all-American girl, just trying to find love, just trying to find something, you know, beautiful and perfect. And because of everything that she goes through, dating terrible people, being devastatingly hurt by them, she has had to do some growing up and do some kind of soul searching and talk about things in a little bit of a harsher way than she had on previous albums. And Effie similarly has to go through a kind of rediscovery of herself after she goes through a glass shattering moment for herself. And that's kind of the connection that I most see with Speak Now and Effie. I want everyone to start thinking first about the song Innocent as our kind of first point of connection with Effie. And I want to imagine her talking to her younger self. The Hunger Games series version talking to the Sunrise on the Reaping version of Effie Trinket. Wasn't it easier in your lunchbox days? Always a bigger bed to crawl into. Wasn't it beautiful when you believed in everything and everybody believed in you? Effie's backstory to me is quite similar to Snow's. Her family don't have much social clout because they had been associated with the rebels in the war. So she's kind of always fighting this perception that has been made about herself and trying to outrun it, which of course is extremely tiring and is obviously something that Snow goes through as well, where he's constantly trying to be on top of the opinions that people are starting to have about him that maybe Snow doesn't always land on top. But of course it does until the end. Effie is always trying to let her work speak for her, which is kind of similar to Taylor as well. She's letting her work speak for her. Taylor, I feel like, has been a person that has always endured a lot of criticism for fucking no reason. And similarly, Effie is kind of given a lot of criticism for maybe criticism that wasn't deserved at that point. Certainly, there are things that we can criticize about Effie. She is indoctrinated into the capital thinking. She fully believes a lot of the manipulation, but we know from her experience with Haymitch that she's still a really kind person, and she ultimately is very loyal and wants the best to happen to the people that she cares about. So there's like redeeming character qualities there. Once Effie sees a lot of the things that are happening to Katniss and Peeta particularly. She sees it a little bit with Haymitch, but it's certainly drummed into her more once she has kind of climbed socially enough that she's able to live past the perceptions of her family previously. She now has space to understand Katniss and Peeta's plight. And then of course she starts to unweave the propaganda from the capital. Now that she knows someone from the districts personally and can see that it doesn't apply to them. They're not animals, they're not barbaric like how the capital portrays them, things like that. Another song that I really like for Effie is Castles Crumbling. And you don't want to know me, I'll just let you down. You don't want to know me now. I really feel like this song suits movie Effie particularly. I do apologize for deviating away from the books, but the movie version of Effie is certainly canon to me. That is just how I would prefer to see this character because I really like Effie. Once she's in 13, Effie needs to do a lot of soul searching and kind of grapple with what she has been led to believe, what she now believes, what she is willing to fight for, and feeling broken and not like a person anymore now that she is not able to subscribe to the kind of beautiful glitter personality that she had once adopted. Now that she knows that it's wrong, it doesn't suit her anymore. And I really feel like that concept works for Castles Crumbling. She's burned her capital ties officially now, and there's just no way of going back even if she wanted to. There will be no normal for her now, and she needs to find her new normal and make the best of it. The lyrics that I think encapsulate Effie Trinket to me are, I just realized everything I have is someday gonna be gone. So sad. Why is everyone so sad? Now I'm gonna be even more sad because the next character that we have to talk about is Rue. And the album, I think is gonna be pretty obvious which album I'm picking for Rue, and that is Taylor Swift, the debut album. Oh my god. I was on the Hunger Games subreddit recently, just perusing, and I saw someone say that the first time that Katniss and Rue ever meet is when they're training before the games and they're showing off their skills and learning different things, and the thing that Katniss is doing is using a spear. And the last time that Katniss and Rue ever see each other is when Rue is speared to death. That really ruined my day, and so of course I would request that we all endure a day ruined together. Thanks. That's what friends are for, right? I don't think it's much surprise that the character that is kind of the youngest character in the series that we get to interact with is of course going to be with the youngest of the albums. Unfortunately, like Taylor has kind of talked about, you kind of get stuck or frozen at a certain age, and Rue gets frozen at a certain age by the sad fact that she dies at the age that we know her. So we only ever know her as a child. Of course, Prim gets the benefit of like 2 years in the story that we get to know her, where Rue just gets to be 12 and that's it. I'm wearing my heart on my sleeve. Rue goes into the games hoping to win as a pacifist. We've seen people win as a pacifist in the past. We know Wyrus beat the games essentially by hiding for the whole games, and people never saw her. Even the game makers didn't see her. And I think that that's exactly how Rue planned to win. She just was going to outsmart everyone. We knew that she was able to climb trees and kind of surf through the trees in a way because of her experience in District 11. And she approaches every situation with love and hope, and I think that that's really admirable. She befriends Katniss, and their friendship is built on honesty and trust. And while Rue is outwardly brave, a place in this world touches on the internal emotional weight that she carries. Rue keeps a calm and sweet demeanor, but she's living in fear and danger at every moment that she's in District 11. And then of course, within the Hunger Games themselves, there is a sense of joy throughout debut and an undercurrent of anxiety as well, just, navigating growing up and not knowing where you fit in. And I feel like, Teardrops on My Guitar is a really good song for that. Tim McGraw even. It's not only applicable to Rue, but it is obviously applicable to just the plight of being a young girl. It's only amplified for Rue because of course the stakes are just so much higher for her. So the lyrics that encapsulate Rue to me are, "You're tied together with a smile, but you're coming undone." Next up we have a beloved character. They're all beloved, let's be real. But for serious, Finnick Odair. Yep. Oh, Finnick, how near and dear to my heart that you are. Before I had read the books, Finnick was my favorite character by far. So yes, I've always been disappointed in my life by the things that I love. So before I had read the books, Finnick was my favorite. I just loved him in the movies. Obviously, now having grown up and having read the books, Peeta has taken that spot over forcefully, but Finnick is still mwah, 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 mwah. And of course, to do Finnick the justice that he deserves, I'm going to give him one of my most beloved albums. And I think that Taylor wrote 1989 for Finnick Odair. Yep. Yep. I just feel like the album and his character just make complete sense. I feel like this is one of those ones that I feel like everyone's just gonna go, oh yeah, okay. Finnick is vibrant and charismatic. He knows the mask that he needs to wear to get the job done. And I think that the genre shift and the kind of chameleon nature of 1989 really fit with the character of Finnick. A story of manipulation, survival, fear, and secrets. That is 1989. Through and through. I could show you incredible things. Magic, madness, heaven, sin. Yes. We meet Finnick, of course, in the Quarter Quell, the 75th Hunger Games. We know from the moment that we see him that he is a flirt and he knows how to get what he wants. He has what looks like a rather glamorous lifestyle since his games. He knows who to know. His contacts are stacked. He has been forced to play the role of the consort. A lot of what the Capitol has kind of forced him to do is sex work. We hear a lot about that with Tigress's character. We hear a lot about that with some of the characters that experience that in The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And of course, we hear about it in Catching Fire with Finnick, which Finnick uses this experience to his advantage. But of course, it's at odds with who he really is, because underneath it all, he's doing everything that he can to make sure that his loved ones are protected. He can show you incredible things. He can give you this beautiful experience in bed with him because he's so delightful and you just want to have a little piece of him. But underneath it all, he's just a guy in love with a girl, making sure that she doesn't die. I really feel like for kind of a top-down view of Finnick, Blank Space is a really good place to start with his character. Another song that I really think fits with Finnick is Out of the Woods. Are we out of the woods yet? Are we in the clear yet? We get a real sense that every decision that Finnick makes throughout the story is so that he can have his beautiful life with Annie. He is doing everything in his power to make sure that the Capitol is appeased until he knows that Annie is safe. Annie is still in District 4 when eventually through the 75th Hunger Games, he is eventually taken by the rebels when they free themselves from the arena. And until he knows that Annie is safe, he has to be compliant. He has to still serve the Capitol and their demands. He doesn't want to make any waves because it's going to put Annie at risk. He would know that these things are possible, of course, because of characters like Haymitch, characters like Johanna, two people that he's relatively close with who have lost everything because of their actions, whether they were in the games or outside and rebellious kind of plots, whether they were overtly rebellious or just inconveniences to the Capitol, you can still be punished. And so Finnick that's at the front of his mind. He just wants to be with his beautiful girl Annie. You know, are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet? That anxiety of not knowing if there is space for them to be together, that is Finnick Odair to a T. And the final song that I want to talk about is Clean. Now that I'm clean, I'm never gonna risk it. Clean really resonates for me with Finnick once he's stationed at District 13. Once he's reunited with Annie, once he's able to shed all of the feelings, all of the guilt of everything that he's had to do to make sure that Annie is finally safe, he now doesn't have to think about complying with them. He can just be with Annie, and now he can finally unleash the secrets that he's always wanted to say. Unfortunately, of course, this doesn't last very long. At least he gets to marry Annie. They don't get to be clean for long. But, you know, I really think that Clean definitely is Finnick in Mockingjay. And the lyrics that I think that encapsulate Finnick Odair are loose lips sink ships all the damn time. Yup. We have 2 albums left. And one of them, yeah, I've been itching to tell you about. So the next character that we're going to be talking about is, of course, Johanna Mason, the queen herself. And of course, what album can fit with a beautiful queen like Johanna but Folklore? Yeah, of course I'm gonna give my favorite album to her, of course. Folklore is raw, it is jagged, it is poetic. It's about deep wounds, masking feelings, memories, survival, identity, and that is all Johanna coded. Hey! She is sharp-edged, she is grief-hardened, and she is emotionally complex with a defiant exterior. I think the most obvious song that matches Johanna and speaks to Johanna that Taylor Swift obviously wrote for her was Mad Woman. Every time you call me crazy, I get more crazy. What about that? Johanna is pushed and pushed to the brink because of how she was violated, manipulated, and broken by the system. She is unapologetic about her anger toward the Capitol, and they hate her more because of it, because they can't control her, because they have truly done everything that they can to her, and now she can just act out. There's nothing to lose anymore. She can just keep going, create destruction for them, and she's really a terrifying character to the Capitol. They hold no power over her. They killed all of her family. They destroyed her home. She has nothing, and that is the scariest person to be around. My words shoot to kill. When I'm mad, I have a lot of regrets about that. Beneath the tough exterior, Johanna is deeply wounded, and This Is Me Trying is another song that I really feel aligns with Johanna. It discusses the quiet depression and fatigue of someone who is just trying to survive desperately and is just barely hanging on. I think this song works both for catching fire, but is also amplified by who she becomes in The Mockingjay once she has gone through the same kind of torture that Peeta endures in the Capitol. Once she comes back, she's even more broken than before, but somehow she's finding some strength and a way to go on in the bitterness that she feels and the revenge that she needs to have on the Capitol. That is really what's fueling her. It's not something that she can, go on forever, but it's enough for now, and that is her trying. Stood on the cliffside screaming, give me a reason. Criminally underrated. Hoax definitely fits with Johanna. The disillusionment that she feels of having lost everything, her family, her home, her freedom. Spite can only keep you going for so long. She tries to live on and to not squander the opportunity that she has in making her life mean something. She's not going to let the deaths of her family mean nothing and get herself killed and not show something for it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that Johanna's relationship with Finnick and Katniss is largely built on the knowledge that they fully understand what she has gone through. They're patient with her and give her that support that she needs, which I think is beautiful. And I love that. The lyrics that I think encapsulate Johanna Mason to me: I'm still a believer, but I don't know why. I'm still trying everything to keep you looking at me. Yes, we're finally here. The final character that I will be talking about and the final album that I will be talking about is Caesar Flickerman. And what album? Midnights. Yeah. I couldn't let the Tooch not have some representation in this. Yes, I love Caesar Flickerman because of Stanley Tucci. Yes, I do love him in the book. I think he's another instance of great comic relief. But of course, because he's not like a super duper main character, he's just a consistent character that we see. He doesn't necessarily have a lot of character growth for us to talk about. I probably should have been talking about Plutarch, but thinking about Plutarch and Midnights is a little bit harder. I wasn't seeing the connection there as much as I'm seeing with Caesar, so I felt I had something more compelling to say about that one. But because we don't have a lot of character to work with, I'm going to be doing some assumptions. But this is the only way that I can allow myself to engage with Caesar as a character, so anyway. Something that I'm now thinking about is what happens to Caesar Flickerman at the end of the Mockingjay when the rebels take over the Capitol? Does he die? Is he imprisoned? I don't know. Anyway, in my headcanon, we only know genuinely about Caesar through Katniss and Haymitch. So I've done a little bit of crafting, okay? I think we need to start talking about my crafting of Caesar through Bejeweled. I can still make the whole place shimmer. Bejeweled is about refusing to be forgotten. It is about getting what you deserve. The glitz and the glamour, all these things are Caesar through and through. And I think it's Caesar on the top level that we see him as, you know, we see him as a charismatic character, someone who demands the spotlight. He has to, even when the world is crumbling, even when things are falling apart within his palm, he is keeping things together. We see that best in the Hunger Games when Peeta says that I've come here with my girl. It's so sad. She's going to die if I win. And we see it in Catching Fire when he says, if it weren't for the baby, I'm the problem, it's me. I am probably reaching, and this is a lot of my, I would say, crafting that I've done of Caesar's character, but I'm gonna need you to walk with me for a moment. We're assuming from reading the book that Caesar is compliant with the things that he says, but I do think there is an element of understanding that we could have that because of the career that he's been afforded. Obviously, we see in Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes that his father is the Caesar Flickerman before Caesar Flickerman. He jumps into this career after his father. Maybe he likes the attention of the role, and maybe there's an element of it where he doesn't believe in a lot of the things that he says. Maybe he doesn't believe in what the capital ideas are, but he is in the spotlight more than anyone else, and he is trapped in the spotlight. He has to play this role. And in songs like Anti-Hero, it is about self-reflection and looking at the perception of Taylor and how much this aligns with her and how much maybe she has not assisted herself in the kind of perceptions that she's had, of what perceptions have been woven around her. And so I feel like we can kind of explore that with Caesar as well. There's a potential for him to just be playing a role. He's playing a character rather than it being genuine. Do you know what I mean? I feel like this perfectly follows into our next song. I laid the groundwork and then, just like clockwork, the dominoes cascaded in a line. Yes, if we're following this theory, I feel like Mastermind is the perfect song that goes with Caesar. There is a level of manipulation and a level of masking that needs to happen for Caesar to have his job and have him employ these techniques to make the show keep going. When Caesar is thrown curveballs, he needs to make it work. In my mind, in my head canon, he is not only there to, you know, make an entertaining show, but it is his job to show every one of the tributes in the best light that he can so that they can all have the best chance at surviving. Right? So I feel like there has to be a compassionate element to him, an empathetic element that makes him able to do that. But he needs to be able to assist the tributes in a way that doesn't put him in danger of the Capitol's terror. He has to act within the scope of what's allowed for the Capitol. And because he has so many eyes on him, I feel like he is the most at risk. So I feel like he needs to really be the mastermind to be able to keep control of all of that. He needs to move the puzzle pieces in a way that just is more intelligent than people give him credit for. So for those reasons, this is my defense of Caesar Flickerman. I feel like you can really understand where I'm going with that though. I feel like it's not that hard to believe that a lot of people are kind of just following a job to keep themselves safe. There's certainly an argument to be made about you can still be at fault because you didn't assist, but you know, sometimes your own survival needs to be at the forefront of your brain. He just needed to go under the radar as much as he can with his rebel tendencies. I don't know. I feel like the lyrics that encapsulate Caesar the most to me is "A diamond's gotta shine." Of course it is. Whether he's good or bad, a diamond's gotta shine, baby. So with that, we have all of our albums discussed, and therefore that is all the characters that I will be talking about today from the Hunger Games. Thank you very much for sitting with me. It has been extremely fun to talk about this. I have really loved reading the Hunger Games. I really enjoyed, I don't know, just getting lost in that world and now using it as a kind of creative outlet with something that I love and adore, Taylor Swift. I really hope that you enjoyed watching this because I had just so much fun crafting it. If you like these kind of videos where I discuss Taylor and then something bookish, I have a lot of other ideas that I would like to explore. So if you like this, please give this video a like and let me know. If you think any of these characters could also have worked with another album, let me know. Don't tell me I was wrong though specifically, but just tell me that there's another album that they could have gone with. Okay, there's a lot of characters that could have had reputation. There's a lot of similar threads that we could follow. You can kind of understand every character could go with a lot of different albums, but these are the ones I thought were the best scenarios. So definitely let me know about it. And other than that, I hope that you've all been extremely well. I hope that you are staying hydrated, and I will see you all next time. Mwah!